Hello everyone and welcome to Motivation Talktation, episode 1. Obviously the name is pretty cringy, but I'm going to try and be clear as possible as I can for this because the mic isn't great, so I'll try my best to get the words across. Open to load. Okay, so I guess the first topic we'll be looking at is aviation. Obviously, these videos will be opinion based. Nothing's really factual. It's more of just my opinion and my experiences. So, yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. So, aviation, my interests and challenges to it. That's by myself. There's the channel name there, and this is episode 1. Okay, so why I started liking aviation. So, from a young age, aviation obviously wasn't a big part of my life. I think for most children it wouldn't really be, for mostly children, or it would be, cars and like watching like young video games and stuff like that. But aviation isn't really a thing to like really grab your attention at the age of 1 year old. I think I fully got into it at the age of 5, and really enjoyed it. So my first aviation experience, I believe I was around the age of 5 years old, and I got my very first look at an airplane on a family holiday. So I saw a yellow plane, and I really wanted to get on it, but that wasn't our plane. So, obviously, at the age of 5, if you're not getting what you want, you're going to have a meltdown about that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that was my first flying experience, and at that age, it's common in children's ears to get actually pains in their ears during flying, and it's just it's actually normal, and it happens to anyway. It depends what age it is when it goes away, but it'll go away over time, so it's pretty much normal. It's nothing to be worried about. So then I knew after my first flying experience of traveling abroad and seeing a whole new country outside of Ireland, I knew flying was definitely something I could do in my future for my career. So my longest flight in my lifetime. Now, I've been on many, many flights to the current day of 2020. I've seen many countries in the world, and I've been to Europe, I've been to Asia, I've been to the US. However, I haven't been to Africa yet. So and I haven't been to Africa or Canada or places like that. I haven't been there, but I have been to the US. I've been all around. I've been in a good couple of countries in Europe, and then a couple of countries in Asia. So I've seen a good bit of the world to understand to really show my love for aviation. So my longest flight, I've been on, I think, was about 15 hours on a plane. So back in 2011, myself and my family had to move to Singapore, and Singapore is in Asia. It's a country off connected to the island of Malaysia. Well, I should say the country, but it's connected to Malaysia, and it's very small. It's a very small country, but a big population, and again, it's in Asia. So we had to have a very long flight there, and it was just crazy because I was only 9 years old at this time. So I think being 9 and moving to a new country, leaving all your friends behind, and I just guess seeing a new part of the world was crazy for a 9-year-old like me. And there was also the thing is that I was able to make friends easily. I was able to settle in fine, and I think that's the good thing. But the traveling experience was probably the best thing ever, because I was traveling on a big A380, which is like the double decker, and that was really cool to see at the age of 9. So when I moved to a new country, I had the chance to meet new friends and explore a whole new culture. Like Singapore was roasting. It was like, 40 degrees during the day, maybe 20, 30 degrees at night. So like it was roasting during the night. It was just so warm because like it was crazy. I mean, even the rain wasn't even as cold as you have it here in Ireland. The rain was actually almost sometimes warm. So it was really cool. So how was my interest in aviation developed really from what it used to be to what it is now? So um, when I was younger, obviously I enjoyed the parts of flying. I loved sitting on the window seat and recording takeoff and landing, and I enjoyed just being on the plane. I just loved flying. But whereas now I've taken a more different approach to it, and I've done that by I've actually collected some model aircraft, and I've started collecting model airplanes, and I've started doing flying school camps, and even last year I took on my very first flight lesson. So actually sitting in it was a small turboprop Technum, so I was sitting in that, and me instructors went up. We were flying about 700 feet, so not even 1,000 feet, but we were at a 700 feet, so that's again pretty high. But it just felt good to be up that high. I think honestly, I didn't feel worried or nervous. I felt a little bit nervous before, but then I just settled into it. Um, so obviously the fear of flying is present there, but when you're actually up there, it just feels, I don't know, amazing. It's such a feeling that you will never forget, even if you don't have an interest in aviation at all. Like, to get the opportunity to go up in an airplane, have the controls, and actually fly an airplane is just an amazing feeling itself. But if you're fully interested in it, it means more than the world. So the model airplanes I collect are by Gemini Jets. They're a model scale. They're a modeling designer company in the US, and they create models that look like the actual aircraft you'd see every now and then, but they're in a 1 to 400 scale. And I think I've collected around 21 of them, 24 models, and they're very expensive. Like the average model is about 55 to 50 pounds, which is around 50 euros, 60 euros. So yeah, they're very expensive, and you don't really want to break them because they're very delicate models. So the fears of flying and the difficulties with aviation today. So the fear, personally, I haven't had this experience with the fear of flying. I know, I wouldn't know personally, but I know it's definitely a challenge for a lot of people because there is just so many, like, everyone has said that like aviation is one of the most safest ways to travel, and it is because it's very unlikely, very almost near impossible. Well, not impossible, but very unlikely, very uncertain that you're going to crash when you fly, because the more time, the years are going by with aircraft, and how the technology is more and more advancing throughout these years. The aircraft are almost becoming fully self-automated. There's autopilot systems that the pilots don't even have to control. It's all done on a computer system. So you're more likely to crash in a car than you actually are to crash on a plane, because it's just you and the plane up there. Yes, there's other planes flying around you at all times, but they're at least 4,000 feet or 3,000 feet in altitude difference above you or beneath you. Plus, um, there's pilots always keeping in contact with the radar stations in airports below you, so there's always communication if anything is to go wrong. And pilots are trained in simulations for situations where they may crash or have either a damaged engine or lost an engine or I've lost a landing gear. And I'll talk about that towards the end as a add-on, I guess. The difficulties with aviation, I guess, is their fuel emissions. Now, I couldn't tell you the exact number of aircraft that have been built today because that is crazy. There's an aircraft being built almost every day, I'd say. Because, there's the likes of Boeing and Airbus. They're always designing new aircraft every day of the same aircraft, but for their airline because of the demand. But that means that there's more fuel emissions going in, and that's obviously damaging the Earth. Well, that's an obvious. That's almost happening by every industry right now, and especially in the cars and buses and trains. Some cars, yes, are becoming electric. They've made the move more earlier than planes have to electric cars to, I guess, prevent that. I know, and there's some sports racing competitions that are using more environmental friendly fuel. But the aviation business is also taking this initiative by bringing in the zero-E aircraft. And I know I'm not trying to be factual here, but this is what I read off Airbus's website, and that they said that they'll be in service by 2035. So to get zero emission aircraft would do a lot for the loss of the atmosphere. It would make it more safer, and it prevent it from it prevent it from damaging the aircraft. So the airline industry are progressing to make air travel more, I guess, efficient than it already is now, and obviously more safer for the planet. So it's kind of finding a balance. But again, back to fears. Some of the fears of flying have actually increased now because of events such as 9/11. When 9/11 occurred, I know I'm talking about a bad topic here, but it's very much aviation related because it was caused by aviation. It was caused by an airplane. And that event put trauma on aviation travelers, because after the years of 2001, like, this isn't even factual, it's general knowledge. It's obvious that people were feeling terrified to fly because of what happened the years before. They were just terrified because of the terroristic threats that would happen on board a plane. So the airports took this into consideration, and what they did was they installed better security methods to prevent these from happening. And if you haven't realized, if you look this up about the differences between the pilot doors from back then to now, the pilot doors are metal and secured with locks so that no one can, if the hijackers are on a plane, they cannot get in to the pilots. And plus they wouldn't get onto the plane because security would check them, and if security did a wrong check and they got on the plane, they still wouldn't be able to get to the pilots because those doors are locked from the inside. The pilots locked doors, those doors are locked, whereas back then it was a curtain and it was so much more easier to hijack, whereas now the aviation industry have made it so secure that it's nearly unlikely now for terroristic threats. So obviously I can understand why there's still fears of flying, and obviously the threats of the events, the horrible events of 9/11. But because of these new methods of security being initiated by the aviation business, it's to prevent a threat like this happening again. That's why they were put in, and that's the reason they're there. Oh, sorry. So, some final encouragement. And I'll talk to you again about my emergency landing experience. So, first of all, I would really like to encourage you to try flying in your life. You should never fear of, of flying. It may be difficult to, get up there on a plane, and once you do, if it's for the first time, you feel amazing because you've achieved something. You've overcome your fear, first of all, which is an amazing experience to overcome your fear of flying. And then you've actually done it, and you figure, oh my God, I've missed so much of this, I actually like it. So that's why I encourage you to try flying in your life. And even if it's going for a test flight and you might be so scared, but as I said, you're less likely to crash in a plane than you are in a car. Or you're less likely to die in a plane than you are walking on the road. Because if you're walking on a road, you can get hit by a car. You can get knocked down. That's not going to happen to you in a plane. The worst things to happen in a plane are unlikely to happen. So I know it's difficult to get over the fear of flying. But all you need is just time to get over that fear. You also need support from friends. You need to try and think positive when it comes to the fear of flying. As hard as it is to overcome and stuff, you can talk to a friend about it and they will literally help you. And plus, if you're going out to the flight and nervous as hell or scared for your life, the cabin crew are there to make you feel as comfortable as possible. That's what they're there for. They're there to train. They're trained to actually help customers on a flight who are first-time flyers, to help them settle in and not make sure they're worrying about anything. So that's why aviation industry is one of the most friendliest. Now, there is obviously the odd time where cabin crew are just horrible and not nice and at all, and airline staff are brutal, but that's on a particular aspect. If you look at the whole aspect of aviation and the cabin crews and the pilots, they're all mostly welcoming to the passengers on the plane. So anyway, I'll tell you about my experience of an emergency landing. I think this is the only emergency landing I've ever been in. So I was coming back from New York after, I think it was my end of first year, and I was coming back from New York after our summer holiday, and basically what happened was we were coming into the airport in Shannon, and the pilot announces over the radio and says, the indicator for one of the landing gears isn't showing. We don't know if it's down or not. So this is a failed ground check, I think, with the plane back in Newark in New York. So he announces that we're going to have to make an emergency landing. I think when you hear that for the first time, your instinct is to kind of start panicking, start worrying, start asking if everything's going to be okay and stuff. And whereas for me, I think it was the more different approach, because I took a different kind of view of it. I was like, what's happening? Oh, are we? I never thought we were going to crash. I didn't have that mentality at all. I never assumed that if we were to land, anything was to go bad. I thought it was going to be fine. We're going to be okay. So that's the mentality I had. That was a good mentality to have, because if I was freaking out, it would have been very, very bad and very different. So what I did was I pulled out my phone and started recording out the window with the announcement over the. So I was basically feeling like a YouTuber recording the whole experience while everyone else on the plane was like freaking out. You know, they were hugging each other, crying, and like I just wasn't like that. I had a more different mentality to the whole experience. So yeah, we landed down, all wheels were down, we were fine, and the next day I ended up in the Clare Herald. So yeah, I ended up in the newspaper the next day, which was just funny as hell. But you know, again, in these experiences, obviously your instinct is to panic and to worry, but you've got to realize your captains, your pilots are trained professionals. They've been in these situations in simulators. They know exactly what to do, and they know the outcome. They know they have to land as safely as possible and take every moment seriously of the emergency landing. But they will literally get you as safe as possible on the ground. And there's other things as well, like the brace procedures. I remember having to do that, and um, it was pretty cool to do that. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I know not people I know now. Um, if I was to say I was there feeling fine, recording the window, they'd be like, Jesus, I'd be frightened for my life, which is understandable. Most people would, but for some reason, I wasn't feeling worried. That's that's really it. So hopefully you enjoyed this talk. I guess. Hopefully I gave you a good insight to my interest in aviation, obviously the challenges and the fears, and I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, stay positive.